Very, very quickly, K. Murray, just real quick. We keep talking about Casemiro day in and day out, and I know we're going to talk about Manchester United in a second, but Thomas Partey has been absolutely magnificent in that middle of the park. So important. Everybody remembers how important Patrick Vieira was back in the day for Arsenal. Thomas Partey, I'm not saying he's doing exactly what Patrick Vieira has done in the past, but to have somebody like that in the middle to protect the likes of Martinelli, Shaka, Trossard, Gabriel Jesus when he comes in, and Odegaard, allow him to be more creative, is fundamental. Tremendous from Thomas Partey so far.
Yeah, well, they're obviously on course at the moment as it stands to go on and do what Vieira did and lift the Premier League title. They're 5 points clear at the moment. That was their 5th straight Premier League win. Just want to pick back up with Trossard, though, Shaka, just the involvement. And we just saw a range of what we get from him in all 3 of those goals. The ball in for the opening goal, the way that he takes Xhaka's pass to then get past his man and find Martinelli for the second goal. And then we see him finding the spaces so well for Odegaard's goal as well. Just a range of talent that he has.
It really is. And I said he's been a perfect addition, a seamless addition to this Arsenal side. I think he's given them a different dynamic. At a time where, as good as Arsenal were in the first half of the season, I just think you've started to see a little bit of a drop-off. I don't think Martinelli, though he was good today, I think he's been a little bit up and down this calendar year. I thought Bukayo Saka wasn't particularly effective today in particular. But the one constant, we all know in football, when you have young players, you have to get an understanding around the roller coaster that comes with that young talent. And so many of those players were just on a high for the first half of the season. Maybe you're seeing some of that cliche work its way through this year, in that some of those performances, Martinelli and Saka, as I mentioned, haven't been as sterling as they were in the first part of the season. And Trossard has come in, and despite that little bit of a roller coaster, because of his involvement, it's not had that much of an impact on Arsenal's form or indeed their title credentials. I think that has been key. Not just his performances, but more to the point, the timeliness of it. Having somebody show that consistency right now, when the other more talented and younger players are having their little dips, is absolutely, it's bigger than the 3 points would suggest.
Yeah, let's talk about some of these young, talented players. Martin Odegaard, because we've got a fan question here, LME. Odegaard went to Arsenal for under 50 million. It was 35 million. Bargain of the decade?
Yeah, 24 years old. He is, I think, Roberto Olave, who's the director of Real Sociedad, probably should take some of the credit here, because he was the one that, really picked him out when he was struggling at Real Madrid and sent him there. But absolutely, Martin Odegaard is just fantastic. We kept going on about how we're going to miss Mohamed Salah and Erling Haaland at the World Cup. I really miss Martin Odegaard. He is just such an architect. Everything goes through him, and his goal was beautiful. How he allowed to give himself some space, timed it perfectly. He's been majestic. And because he's 24, Arsenal are going to be able to enjoy the riches of his talents for years and years to come. Tremendous player, tremendous midfielder, fantastic stuff for Arsenal to get him from Real Sociedad.
Saw some lovely feet from him on the goal as well, didn't we, Shaka?
Yeah, I mean, Elami's right. I mean, what a player. What a player he continues to prove himself to be. The only issue, I'm not sure this really qualifies as an issue, is Odegaard has been around so long that you kind of forget he's, 24?
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Right, I'm thinking, man, Odegaard, if you could keep this up for a couple of years into his 30s.
He's got 2 years left. He's so old, right?
Exactly, right? All right, I'm like, oh, man, if he could do this through his 30s. He's 24. I keep having to remind myself. So yeah. I say that tongue in cheek. I don't mean it as a negative, of course. He just has a feel, both in when you think about him, and given how long we've been talking about Martin Odegaard and his presence on the pitch, that he's an older player, and that, as Elami put, is a really good thing when we're talking about a 24-year-old.
Yeah, it's crazy.
One quick thing, Kay, on
But you obviously
Sorry,
do,
Kate.
Luis. We've heard about him for so long because he was marked as one of those
Yeah.
wonder kids at such a young age when the link with Real Madrid happened, and obviously then came so young.
Yeah, just the only added bonus that I wanted to say was that because he's working under Mikel Arteta, who kind of played like him, right? That he saw the pitch entirely, vision-like centric midfielder. It's a great mentor to have for Martin Odegaard as well. But yeah, Shaka's spot on. I mean, sometimes he acts like he's 30 years old and, you know, he's only got like 4 years left and stuff. But he's 24, K. Murray. 24.
Yeah, I know. He probably feels like he is 30 years old at this point. He's definitely got probably more stories than most 30-year-olds have to tell. Let's unpack some of the stats, guys. I think it's 26 first half goals in 27 games for Arsenal right now. Only City, who've scored 32 in the first half, have more in the Premier League this season. What does that tell us about them coming out but firing on all cylinders, Shaka?
It says that Arsenal know exactly who they are as a team. They know their identity. They know their strengths. And I'll go back to what I said about Arsenal and that first half performance. I thought they were simply outstanding, and it could and should have been so much more. But it also shows a little sign of a maturity, maybe because of midweek European action and how that they have to manage minutes and manage legs. I question Bukayo Saka playing 90 minutes against Sporting and maybe how that impacted his own performance today. But you come out, and this is something that I think Stevie Nicol in particular articulates so well. Win the game, and then you can coast from there on in. And I thought Arsenal did exactly that. There's no doubt in my mind, had this been closer to the end of the season, had Arsenal not had European action to worry about, they could have just kept pressing as they would and would have won by 6 or 7. But I think it shows a sign of maturity around this team, of an understanding around Mikel Arteta. You go out, you do what you do well, you win the game, and then you just protect that lead. I think you continue to do that. Arsenal keep themselves in a really good place for both domestic and European success. I say that knowing full well that I think Arsenal have every excuse to not be that focused about European action at all. I stand by that, but quite clearly, and just judging from this approach, and albeit this is one game, Arteta seems to think differently, that they can lift 2 trophies.
You know what, Shaka? It's about 3 times you've spoken about Arsenal and had to mention Stevie's name. Isn't it crazy that Stevie Nicol is becoming Arsenal's biggest supporter, it feels? He's completely done a total turnaround on everything that he thought at the beginning of the season, and he stands by it. He's happier to talk about Arsenal than he is at Liverpool right now.
Don't worry, Steve. He's just trying to start a GoFundMe so he can pay Dan the 50 quid that he owes him. That's all Steve is trying to do. That's all.
Go on then, Luis. I know that you're going to take us through the run ahead that's for Arsenal.
Yeah, so obviously, as Shaka was saying, you know, Arsenal's other responsibility is the Europa League, and as Mikel Arteta has voiced it, we're here to win 2 trophies, and obviously he's taking it week in and week out. But the remaining schedule, at least for the foreseeable future, is obviously they host Sporting Lisbon for the Europa League, and then Palace away, Leeds at home, Liverpool away, West Ham away, Southampton away, Man City away, of course, that vital match indeed of the top 2, and then Chelsea at home. And given Graham Potter's recent luck and fortune in figuring out his deep Chelsea side, I'm sure that fixture is going to be difficult. But we did have a question here as well, everybody. Let's say, from a fan, let's say Man City and Arsenal win out every game until their match, and then City then beat them. Will Arsenal still hold on to win the Premier League? Well, there's a 2-point gap there, Shaka. So you would obviously true the one that we just read out, because obviously that involves teams that are dying to get out of the relegation battle, which is literally a 6-point differential between 9 teams, and then the likes of Chelsea and Liverpool. It's going to be tough, including a Europa League match.
It will be. Of course, it takes a lot. I don't think either City or Arsenal go 100% between now and the time that they meet. But for the sake of this question, for that hypothetical, let's say they do, and let's say that City do win, that would close the gap to what, 2 points?
2 points, yeah.
I don't think Arsenal stumble after that. I think if that's the only game that Arsenal loses between now and then, I think they still see this through. They understand what's at stake. They understand the pressure. They understand how to manage games a whole lot better than the Arsenal team of 12 months ago. And I've spoken about them. I've spoken about how I felt the pressure towards the end of the season cost them a top 4 place. I think they've learned from that. I think they've added to that. I think they handle both pressure and games. Their in-game management is a whole lot better than the team of 12 months ago. So I would still bank on Arsenal despite that gap being 2 points at that point.
Yeah, Kay, I'm with Shaka here. I'm not much more to add. I think that despite of what happens at the Etihad, I still see Arsenal picking themselves up regardless of that outcome and continuing on. I just think that Mikel Arteta, this squad, they know who they are. They know the job at hand, and they're not seeing this as a massive mountain. Muhammad Ali has a great quote, which is, the big obstacle is not a massive mountain. It's a pebble in your shoe. So you just got to make sure that every pebble in the shoe, meaning every fixture, just has to be dealt with.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis, and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.